Hello everyone and welcome to Crypto Chris YouTube channel. In today's video we are diving into how some of the biggest names in finance and tech, Larry Fink from BlackRock, Ray Dalio of Bridgewater, and even Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, think about Bitcoin. These industry giants have all publicly said they own Bitcoin, and that's very significant when you take a look how much nonsense you can still hear about it from some other economists. We are also looking at some moves from governments, including the Czech Republic considering adding Bitcoin to their reserves and the US states pushing forward with Bitcoin reserve bills. And if that wasn't enough, I got some big liquidity news that could shape the next bull run. Stick around because we are going to break it all down. Let's jump into it.
Let's start with a tweet from Walt Squad Chris. The founder of the world's largest asset management company openly says, "I own Bitcoin." That's Larry Fink of BlackRock. Meanwhile, the founder of the world's largest hedge fund, Ray Dalio of Bridgewater, echoes the same sentiment, "I own Bitcoin." And even Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, has joined the club stating, "I also own Bitcoin." But then there is your cousin, the one who barely made it through 12th grade, declaring Bitcoin is a scam. We have some interesting news from Czech Republic, where the Czech National Bank is reportedly exploring the idea of allocating 5% of the country's reserves into Bitcoin. This is particularly interesting because the Czech Republic recently abolished capital gains taxes on Bitcoin held for more than 3 years. While the country itself might be relatively small, this move signals a significant shift. Even more surprising is that the central bank governor himself is looking into Bitcoin. Now, it's worth noting that while the Czech Republic is part of the European Union, it still uses its own currency, the Czech krona. This is not the kind of news Christine Lagarde wants to hear. So how does she feel about the idea of EU countries adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets or considering it as a central bank reserve asset? She is against Bitcoin, and she recently said there is a general view within a governing council and most likely within the general council as well, that reserves have to be liquid, that they have to be secure. She loves to repeat that phrase, reserves must be liquid, but let's pause for a second. Bitcoin is one of the most liquid assets in the world. Bitcoin is arguably the most secure asset in the world. And yet, instead of considering Bitcoin, she wants central banks to keep holding government bonds and fiat currencies that are consistently losing value, as that's somehow more secure. But wait, there is more, where Lagarde also insists that reserves should not be tainted by suspicion of money laundering. Funny coming from her, given that she herself is a convicted criminal. For those who don't know, before she became ECB president, Lagarde was the head of IMF, where she was convicted for her role in a massive payout scandal. And yet somehow these people always seem to fall upwards. And how has she done at European Central Bank? Well, let's look at its core mission, as stated in its own charter, to maintain the purchasing power of the euro. They haven't exactly excelled at that. Since its creation in 1999, the euro has lost nearly 90% of its value against gold, and even more when measured against Bitcoin. Just flip the chart and look at the euro versus Bitcoin. The numbers speak for themselves. Nobel laureate Eugene Fama, who has also been in the space for a long time and is widely regarded as the father of the efficient market hypothesis, recently made a rather pessimistic prediction: Bitcoin will eventually become worthless. Now, while the efficient market hypothesis is about 90% accurate, it's clearly not absolute, and Fama's take on Bitcoin is a prime example of its limitations. His main argument: the persistence of Bitcoin challenges established economic principles. In his own words, "I'm hoping it will bust, because if Bitcoin doesn't go to zero, we have to start all over again with monetary theory." Think about that for a second. He's not engaging with Bitcoin as an economic phenomenon, he's rooting for its failure just for traditional monetary theory doesn't have to be re-examined. Maybe, just maybe, that's exactly the reason why monetary theory should be re-examined. And if your theory depends on hoping reality conforms to it, rather than just adjusting your theory to reality, that's a pretty bad sign. Unfortunately for Fama, Bitcoin isn't heading to zero. In fact, it's moving in the complete opposite direction. And speaking of prizes, Fama's Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences isn't actually a real Nobel Prize. It wasn't established by Alfred Nobel like the original Nobel Prizes. Instead, it was created and funded by the Swedish Central Bank. So in essence, a central bank created an award to give to economists who align with central banking ideology. Nothing suspicious about that, right? Just bankers awarding other bankers. Also, we just got another massive 1 billion print from Tether, and that's exactly what we want to see. As long as Tether keeps printing, the likelihood of the bull market continuing remains very high. But that's not all. USDC also printed 250 million a few days ago, bringing the total fresh liquidity injection to 1.25 billion. So why did the market dip despite this liquidity boost? Well, it seems to be linked to the press conference with David Sachs, the so-called crypto czar. But here is the thing, he didn't actually say anything new. No fresh insights, no major announcements, just a repeat of what he had already stated before. He basically said we are going to study Bitcoin. And that was it. The rest of the event, a political show. If you watched the live stream, you probably noticed the usual routine, officials congratulating each other and making promises about working together. Many people were expecting an announcement regarding the Bitcoin strategic reserve, but instead we got a bunch of subcommittee members and bureaucrats going in circles. At the end of the day, the key takeaway from the conference was this. The previous administration was harsh on crypto, and they don't want to be the same. They don't have clear rules yet, and they need more time to study the issue. Regulations won't be overly strict, they plan to make things nice and smooth for crypto adoption. Not exactly groundbreaking news, but at least it's better than anti-crypto stance. Now we wait and see how things develop. We are moving to other news where in the United States, 15 states have now introduced Bitcoin reserve bills, meaning that regardless of whether the federal government decides to buy Bitcoin or not, individual states are already pushing forward. These bills propose adding Bitcoin to state treasuries, and while some states are further along than others, the trend is clear. The real question is this number shrinking or is it only going to grow? And while this is happening in the US, nation-states around the world are also adopting Bitcoin. You now have the opportunity to front-run entire countries. El Salvador, of course, has already crossed the finish line, officially holding Bitcoin in its national reserves. But they won't be the last. The question is, who is next? If you're already using Binance, there is an interesting opportunity you might want to check out. Berachain, a highly anticipated Layer 1 blockchain, is part of the Binance Hodler Airdrops program. What this means is that simply by holding BNB on Binance Earn, you could receive free Berachain tokens when the airdrop happens. For those who aren't on Binance yet, it's completely free to register, and if you sign up through the link in the description of my videos, you'll get a 10% discount on trading fees, which is always nice to have. Berachain is a project that's been gaining a lot of attention. It's the first Layer 1 blockchain built on proof of liquidity, meaning it combines security and liquidity at the protocol level. It's also fully EVM compatible, making it easy for developers to build on. Backed by major players like Polychain, Breven Howard, and even Samsung Next, it already has over 300 ecosystem projects, with some rising over 100 million in funding. Airdrops like this don't come often, and this doesn't require any complex steps, just holding BNB in Earn. So if you're already using Binance, it's worth keeping an eye on. If you're not, signing up is quick and free. Fear and Greed Index right now is in fear, it's at the number 44, yesterday it was neutral, it was just below 50, and last week we had extreme greed. So from extreme greed, in a week we came to a fear. And now let's take a look at the crypto market. Bitcoin stands at $97,486. It's same in the last 24 hours and it's down almost 7% in the last 7 days. Ethereum is down almost 17% in the last 7 days. And right now it's $2,728. XRP 24% down in the last 7 days. $2.36. Solana is also down, pretty much everything is down. I don't think there is only one, there is Mantra, only one cryptocurrency in top 100 that is 3.5% up in the last 7 days. So pretty much everything is going down.
So what's the takeaway? Billionaires, hedge funds, and even central banks are waking up to Bitcoin. Meanwhile, economists stuck in the old system are hoping Bitcoin falls just so they don't have to rethink monetary theory. The world is changing fast and Bitcoin is at the center of it all. The question is, are you ahead of the curve or you're waiting to be the last one in? If you found this video useful, make sure to like the video, subscribe and drop a comment below. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.